Let's dive into one of the most interesting and kind of puzzling stories on the Las Vegas Strip right now, the Fontainebleau. This massive 67-story property opened in December 2023 with enormous fanfare and a price tag of around $3.7 billion. It was supposed to be the next big thing, drawing from that iconic Fontainebleau brand from Miami Beach, but here we are in late 2025, and if you've been in the property recently, you might have noticed something. It feels pretty empty. So let's talk about why that is, what went wrong, and whether there's any hope for this massive resort to turn things around. Let's talk about what the Fontainebleau actually is. This is not a small property. We're talking 3,644 rooms spread across 67 stories, making it the tallest occupiable building in Nevada. The casino floor is massive, somewhere between 150,000 and 173,000 square feet, with about 1,300 slot machines and 128 table games. They've got 42-foot ceilings in parts of the casino, which sounds impressive on paper, but actually contributes to that cavernous, empty feeling we'll talk about later. The property has around 550,000 square feet of meeting and convention space, which is significant given its location is right next to the Las Vegas Convention Center's West Hall. There's the Blue Live Theater with about 3,800 seats for concerts and residencies. They brought in Live Nightclub and Live Beach Day Club through a partnership with Groot Hospitality, banking on that Miami nightlife. And of course, there's a collection of restaurants, bars, retail spaces, and all the other amenities you'd expect from a modern luxury resort. On paper, it sounds amazing. The rooms are genuinely nice, sleek, modern, well appointed, but there's this disconnect between what the property is supposed to be and how it actually feels when you're there. And that disconnect is at the heart of why Fontainebleau is struggling. One of the biggest challenges for Fontainebleau is simply where it sits. The property is on the north end of the strip, which has its pros and cons. On the pro side, you're right next to the Las Vegas Convention Center. When there's a big convention in town, especially one using the West Hall, you're perfectly positioned to capture that business. Convention attendees can literally walk over, and that's valuable. But here's the problem. Vegas doesn't run on conventions alone. The heart of the strip, where you've got the Bellagio, Caesars, Aria, Cosmopolitan, Park MGM, and all those properties, that's where the organic foot traffic is. That's where tourists naturally gravitate. People walk the strip, they hop from casino to casino, they check out the fountains at Bellagio, they people watch, they grab dinner somewhere new. It's this continuous flow of humanity that keeps the center strip properties buzzing. Fontainebleau doesn't get that. If you're staying at Bellagio or Caesars and you want to check out the Fontainebleau, you would have to make a conscious decision to go up there. You're not just wandering by. It's not on the way to anywhere. And in Vegas, where there's so much competition for people's time and money, being off the beaten path is a real disadvantage. Now you might say, wait, what about Wynn and Encore? What about Resorts World? They're all up there too, and you'd be right. But here's the thing, Wynn and Encore have been there since 2005 and 2008 respectively. They've had years to build their reputation, perfect their operations, cultivate their high roller relationships, and establish themselves as destination properties. When people think luxury Vegas, Wynn and Encore are at the top of the mind. They've earned that position. Resorts World opened up in 2021, so they're relatively new too, but they came in with the backing of Genting Group, a massive Malaysian conglomerate with deep pockets and experience running integrated resorts all over Asia. They also position themselves differently, more international, more diverse in their appeal, with multiple hotel brands under one roof. Fontainebleau is trying to compete in the same luxury space, but they're the new kid on the block without the established reputation of Wynn or the corporate backing and strategy of Resorts World. They're sandwiched between these heavyweights, and that's a tough spot to be in. This brings us to another core issue, Fontainebleau's positioning strategy. From day one, this property was positioned as ultra luxury. They were going after high-end gamblers, affluent travelers, people who would spend big on rooms, dining, shopping, and gaming. The price point reflected that. Premium room rates, expensive restaurants, designer retail, the whole vibe was exclusive and upscale. In theory, that makes sense. You've got a brand new building, sleek modern design, the Fontainebleau name with all the Miami glamour attached to it. Why not go luxury? The problem is Vegas doesn't work quite the way Fontainebleau's leadership seemed to think it does. Yes, Vegas has plenty of high rollers and luxury travelers, but the city also thrives on volume and diversity. You've got your whales dropping hundreds of thousands at tables, sure, but you've also got locals coming in for their weekly poker game or to play dollar slots. You've got middle-class tourists saving up for their annual Vegas trip, looking for a good buffet with some reasonably priced entertainment. You've got bachelorette parties, bachelor parties, convention attendees with per diems, retirees with time to kill. Vegas is a big tent, and the most successful properties understand how to capture multiple segments. Fontainebleau's laser focus on the high end meant they essentially ignored ignored everyone else. And here's the problem with that. Even wealthy people don't want to hang out in an empty casino. Nobody does. There's an energy to a busy casino floor. The sounds, the crowds, the sense that something exciting could happen at any moment. That's the part of the Vegas experience. When a casino feels dead, it doesn't matter how nice the finishes are or how high the ceilings are. It just feels off. And that's what happened to Fontainebleau. By pricing out the middle market and focusing exclusively on premium customers, they ended up with a property that often felt deserted outside of major events or big convention weekends. That empty feeling became self-reinforcing. Why would people go out of their way to visit an empty casino? Now, Fontainebleau's strategy might have had a better shot if they'd opened up into a booming Vegas market, but instead they opened in December 2023, and 2024 was fine. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't spectacular. Then 2025 rolled around, and the Las Vegas market has been noticeably more softer compared to 2024. Visitors numbers are down, convention bookings have been lighter. There's been this general sense that people are tightening their belts a bit, whether due to economic uncertainty, inflation fatigue, or just the natural ebb and flow of travel ends. Some reports have shown out-of-market strip visits are down 5% year over year in certain quarters. That's not catastrophic, but it's not that great either, especially for a brand new property trying to establish itself. For the established players like MGM and Caesars properties, they can weather a softer market. They've got loyal customers. They've got databases full of players. They've got established operations. For Fontainebleau, trying to ramp up in a down market, it's brutal. Instead of riding a wave of tourism growth, they're fighting for a smaller piece of a shrinking pie. And remember, this is all happening while they're carrying debt from that $3.7 billion construction cost. Every day, the casino floor sits half empty. Every unsold hotel room, every quiet restaurant, that's money not coming in to service that debt. If you thought the location and market timing challenges were bad enough, wait till you hear about the operational chaos. Within weeks of opening in December 2023, there were already signs of trouble. By January 2024, literally a month after opening, multiple top executives had left the property. The chief operating officer, Colleen Birch, and the chief marketing officer, Shane Smith, both voluntarily resigned. The senior vice president of the casino operations had departed in late December. That's 3 major leadership positions gone in the first month. When executives were bailing that quickly, it tells you something is wrong. Either there were major disagreements about strategy, or people realized the situation was worse than they thought, or both. It's possible that once the property opened, they saw actual numbers coming in versus the projections. Some folks decided that they didn't want their names attached to what was clearly going to be a struggle. The property brought in Maurice Wooden as the new president on January 28, 2024. Wooden had previously been president of Wynn Las Vegas, so he had solid credentials. But stepping into a leadership role at a property that's already hemorrhaging executives and struggling to find its footing, that's an incredibly difficult position to be in. The operational issues extended beyond the executive suite. In May 2025, Fontainebleau laid off dozens of table game dealers. Reports said up to 60 people. That's a significant cut, and it's a clear signal that gaming revenue just wasn't there to support the staffing levels they'd planned for. Fewer dealers means fewer table games open, which means even less activity on the casino floor, which contributes to that empty feeling we keep coming back to. The workforce did unionize earlier in 2025, which secured better wages and benefits for employees. That's good for the workers, but it also means higher labor costs for a property already struggling financially. It's a complex situation without easy answers. Let's talk about the physical space itself, because this is something you really notice when you're there. Fontainebleau went with this very modern, minimalistic aesthetic. Lots of clean lines, contemporary art, high ceilings, and a color palette that skews toward cool tones. Blues, grays, whites. It's undeniably sleek and Instagram friendly. But here's the thing, it's also kind of cold. Vegas has traditionally been about over-the-top theming and spectacle. Caesar's Palace has its Roman columns and Greco-Roman statues. Bellagio has those famous fountains and the glass flower ceiling. The Venetian recreated Venice with gondolas and a painted sky. Even newer properties like Aria and Cosmopolitan have distinctive identities. There's warmth, there's personality, there's something that makes you want to explore and linger. Fontainebleau feels like a more upscale office building or a high-end corporate hotel. Those 42-foot ceilings that were supposed to be impressive, they actually make the space feel cavernous and echoey when there aren't enough people around. The modern art installations are nice if you're into contemporary art, but they don't give casual tourists much to connect with. Compare that to, say, the Wynn, which also is luxury focused but uses warmer colors, lush floral displays, and more intimate spaces that feel inviting even when they're not packed. Or look at Resorts World, which might not be modern but incorporates more color, more visual interest, more things to catch your eye and draw you in. Fontainebleau's design works against them when occupancy is low. The emptiness is magnified by all the space and those high ceilings. It doesn't feel cozy or intimate or exciting. It just feels empty. Here's another problem. Fontainebleau doesn't really have a signature attraction. Every successful Vegas property has something that draws people in, something that makes it a destination in itself beyond just being a place to sleep or gamble. Bellagio has the fountains. People come from all over the world to see those fountains, and while they're there, they might wander into the casino or grab dinner. Wynn has the Lake of Dreams. The Flamingo has the wildlife habitat. Caesars has the forum shops. The Venetian has a Grand Canal shop center with gondoliers. Even Resorts World has the LED exterior that lights up the skyline and makes it visually distinctive. What does Fontainebleau have? According to their own marketing, one of the signature features is its upside-down 1966 Ford Galaxy suspended in the lobby. Now, don't get me wrong, that's kind of cool if you're a car enthusiast. It's not something that's going to be iconic or synonymous with the property. They've got the Blue Life Theater, which books decent acts, but it's not unique. Lots of properties have theaters. The Live nightclub has name recognition from Miami, but in a city with clubs at every major property, that alone isn't enough to be a destination draw. The reality is, if you're a tourist trying to decide what to do with your limited time in Vegas, there's not a compelling reason to make the trek up to Fontainebleau unless you're specifically staying there or seeing a show there. They haven't created that must-see moment that other properties have. Let's talk money. Fontainebleau opened with premium pricing across the board. Room rates were high, restaurant prices were high, everything was positioned at a luxury price point. Again, that makes sense given how they wanted to position themselves, but in 2025, with consumers being more budget conscious and Vegas offering tons of options at every price point, value matters. People are more willing to pay premium prices if they feel like they're getting exceptional value or a unique experience. But if they can't get a comparably nice room at Wynn or Encore for similar or less money, and those properties have more established reputations and better locations, why would they choose Fontainebleau? The property has started to recognize this. They've rolled out more promotions, flash sales, and special offers trying to drive traffic. They also implemented free self-parking for Nevada residents and Blue Rewards members through the end of 2025. That's a smart move to attract locals, who are crucial for filling casino floors on weekdays and during slower periods. But there's a risk there too. Once you start discounting heavily to drive volume, it's hard to maintain that premium brand positioning. You can end up in that uncomfortable middle ground where you're not quite luxury anymore, but you're not really a value play either. Finding that right balance is tricky. Now, I don't want to make it sound like Fontainebleau is a complete disaster, because it's not. There are some bright spots. The entertainment lineup has been pretty solid. They've had touring acts like Tears for Fears, Heart, and Pitbull performing at the Blue Life Theater. They've also made some moves in the DJ world, reportedly bringing in David Guetta for 2025, which is a significant get from a nightlife perspective. When there are big shows or events, the property does get traffic and it can feel very alive. The rooms are also genuinely nice. If someone who values modern design and amenities, the accommodations at Fontainebleau are legitimately good. Guest satisfaction scores are decent too. On TripAdvisor, Fontainebleau has 4 out of 5-star rating, which ranks it 30 among the 252 Las Vegas hotels. That's not bad. Of course, you could argue that a brand new luxury property being 30th is actually disappointing. You'd expect to be at the top 10 or 15. But it's not like guests have terrible experiences. They're just not having transcendent ones. The unionization of the workforce should also lead to improved service quality over time. Better wages and working conditions typically translate to better employee morale and customer service. That would help differentiate the property going forward. So where do things stand now and where are they headed? Fontainebleau is clearly in the middle of a recalibration. The leadership team under Maurice Wooden is trying to figure out the right mix of luxury positioning and broader appeal. The locals promotions and free parking are part of that. So are the special offers and flash sales. Interestingly, despite all the financial struggles, the company recently acquired an adjacent 2.2-acre lot for $112.5 million. That's a big investment for a property that's been hemorrhaging money. It suggests that the ownership is still committed to the long-term vision and potentially has plans for expansion, maybe additional towers, more amenities, or facilities that could drive more traffic. The challenge is getting through the near term. They've got to stabilize operations, build a customer base, and start generating consistent revenue. The ongoing convention calendar helps. When there are big shows at the convention center, Fontainebleau does benefit from that proximity, but they can't rely solely on conventions. Building up the locals database is crucial. In Vegas, locals are the bread and butter, especially during slower tourist periods. If Fontainebleau can become a place where locals want to go for gaming, dining, or entertainment, that provides a foundation of consistent business. The entertainment strategy matters too. If they can land some strong residencies or become known as the place to see certain types of shows or artists, that creates a reason for people to make the trip up there. The Live nightclub could potentially become a bigger draw if they continue booking top-tier DJ talent. There's also the question of whether the broader Vegas market rebounds. If 2026 brings stronger tourism numbers, rising convention attendance, and more consumer confidence, all boats rise with that tide. Fontainebleau would benefit from a rising market just like everyone else. But here's the reality. They're fighting an uphill battle. The location will always be a challenge. The competition from Wynn, Encore, and Resorts World isn't going anywhere. The massive debt load from construction puts constant pressure on the bottom line. And in Vegas, once a property develops a reputation, whether good or bad, it's hard to shake. The Fontainebleau situation is interesting because it tells us something about where Vegas is right now as the market. For years, the narrative has been that Vegas is recession-proof, constantly growing, always building bigger and better. And to some extent, that's true. The city has shown remarkable resilience, but Fontainebleau's struggles show that you can't just build a massive luxury property and assume people will come. You need the right location, the right positioning, the right timing, and the right execution. You need something that sets you apart. You need to understand your market and serve multiple customer segments, not just go all in one narrow slice. It also shows the importance of market timing. Opening into a softening market when you're a brand new property with no established customer base is incredibly difficult. If Fontainebleau had opened in 2019 into a booming Vegas market, and there's a lesson here about operational excellence. All the beautiful design and modern amenities in the world doesn't matter if your operations are a mess, if your leadership is in chaos and your employees are being laid off. Vegas is a hospitality business at its core, and you've got to get the fundamentals right. I've been to Fontainebleau multiple times now, and I'll be honest, it's a strange experience. Walking through those empty casino floors, seeing those towering ceilings and sparse crowds, there's this sense of unrealized potential. You can see what they were going for. You can imagine what this place might feel like if it were packed with people. But right now, it's not. And that empty feeling is hard to shake. The rooms are nice, the pool is nice, but those alone aren't enough to make it a destination. They need to figure out how to bring energy and life to the property. Can they turn it around? Honestly, I think it's going to be tough. They're not going to close, there's too much invested, and the property does serve a purpose, especially during big conventions. But I'm skeptical that they'll never achieve what they originally envisioned, which was being the hot new luxury destination on the Strip. More likely, they'll settle into being a solid good option for convention business, a place that attracts some tourists who got a good deal, and maybe builds up a modest local following. That's not a disaster, but it's not the grand vision either. The biggest wildcard is what happens with what adjacent lot they bought. If they can develop something there that becomes a real draw, maybe an arena or a unique entertainment venue or something truly innovative, they could change the equation. But that's years away and requires significant additional investment. The Fontainebleau story is still being written, but right now it's a cautionary tale about the challenges of launching a mega resort in a competitive market. It's about the importance of location, positioning, timing, and execution. It's about understanding that Vegas success requires more than a big building and a famous name. I'm curious to see where this property is in about a year or two. Will they have found their footing? Will the market have rebounded enough to lift them? Or will they continue to struggle? A beautiful but underutilized monument to ambition and miscalculation.